Hello, Blackie. I'm Martin from Crank It Up magazine. Is W.A.S.P of the 21st century a more serious political band than the more party-oriented version from the 80s, you say?
Wow. Headless came out in '89. So I would say that that's when that change happened. Because there's a place, I guess, for all kinds of music. But for myself personally, you know, I started looking around at what I felt was my purpose. And I thought music can be so much more than this. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for guys to have a good time. But if I can do something to say something or help change somebody's life, I'm going to sleep a lot better at night.
About politics and religion, how much politics do you think it's in all the religion we see in media nowadays?
It depends on what religion you're talking about. Give me one.
Take anyone.
The Catholics?
Go.
100% politics.
The other ones?
Well, it depends on which. I mean, we could go down the list individually. I don't know if you got time for that. But, like I said, any religion that's going to tell you that there's something in the Bible and it's clearly not there, you better go read for yourself, because that's people telling you they're after their own agenda. They could care less about you. When you've got a pope that kills more Christians in one day than all the other wars put together, that's a guy you got to take a long, hard look at.
Hi, Gosha from Supertonic. I'm wondering, it's 5 years since you released your latest album, and I'm wondering if you're working and planning on next.
We're about 3 weeks away from finishing the next one. So it will be out next year. And it will be called Golgotha.
You wrote quite a big story about your whole career on your website a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Will you ever produce a book, the autobiography by Blackie Lawless?
I don't know. You know, I see people write books, and I'm not here to say anything bad about anybody that does that. I just don't know if right now I have anything to say that anybody would want to hear. Sure. You know, I wrote on that website what I thought was relevant, and to me that was a love letter to the fans. You know, because each one of those chapters took me about 8 hours to write. I mean, forgive me, I'm slow, but you know, it took a long time to do it. And that was my way of just giving back to them, to let them in on the inside of what had been going on for the longest time. Because the stuff you guys read about, or any magazine, that's been pretty well documented over the years. I wanted to give them a little bit of an insight to what was really going on, you know, without saying anything bad to hurt anybody else, because that's another thing about other people's books. You know, they want to say things about other people sometimes, or make assumptions when maybe they weren't there, or things like that. That's just not for me.
You mentioned the title of the new album. What will the message on the album be this time?
Well, Golgotha is Hebrew for place of the skull. And it's the hill where Christ was crucified. And it's interesting when you see a lot of bands going around using satanic images or images of death and things like that. And I'm thinking, all they need to do is look at the source, because it's right there. I mean, there's more. If you want death, there's enough to go around there.
What can you tell us about the music on it?
It sounds probably more similar to the last two that we've done. And it took about we've been working on this thing for 4 years now. And I don't know if you guys heard, I had a little hiccup last year. But, and that delayed recording for almost a year. I broke my leg. But that too was an interesting trip. But there's one thing that I learned when I was doing the Crimson Idol. If you make a record over too long a period of time, you have to be very, very careful, because the record you start out making is not the record you end up finishing, because you've changed so much as a person over a 3 or 4 year period. You got to be very, very careful to hold on to that vision.
Hi, Blackie, I'm Mickey. How do you manage to keep your voice at such a perfect tone? I mean,
well, I think that's objective now, isn't it?
No, it isn't. I mean, you're getting better and better.
Well, I had a serious problem in '83, and before we did our first album, I ruptured the whole left side of my voice. And I mean, it was like you have a flat tire going down the road at 200 kilometers an hour. That's what happened to me. And the whole left side was gone. And so there was a doctor in Los Angeles, and he was a throat specialist. And this guy was impressive because when you walked into his office, most doctors have their little certificates on the wall of what school they went to and things like that. This guy's office, floor to ceiling, all the way around on every wall, gold and platinum records. Frank Sinatra, Stevie Nicks, Rod Stewart. I mean, everybody was on that wall. And so he went in and he examined me, and he says, okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. He says, you got a serious problem here. You may never sing again. But if you do exactly what I tell you to do, I'll get you through this. He says, the first thing that's going to happen is you're not going to speak for 6 weeks. The phone rings at your house, let it ring. You go to a restaurant, you take a pen and a paper, and you write it. So this went on for 6 weeks. The temptation when that happens is to test it from time to time to see if it's there. I don't know if any of you have ever gone 6 hours without talking before, especially if you need to answer a question from someone. Go 6 weeks. It's like being in this deaf, dumb, and blind hell. You can't really communicate with anybody. And the whole time that's happening, your brain is going, you're never going to sing again. You're never going to sing again. So at the end of the 6 weeks, he got me through it. He says, all right, let me ask you this. He says, do you ever exercise before you sing? And I said, no. He says, well, you watch the Olympics? He says, you see those sprinters out there? You see them stretching before they run? I said, yeah. He says, what do you think they're doing? Stretching? And I said, okay. He says, warm up, get ready before you go out. He says, if you do that, you'll get through this. And so I found that over a period of time, the stretching not only helped me from becoming hurt again, it actually strengthened me in ways that I'd never known before. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Some years ago, you stopped playing Animal because of your faith. Have your faith affected the show and your life in some other ways also?
Well, I look at it like this. I'm out here, I'm a representative of the Most High God. And I have to be very careful about the things I say and do. I've been given an opportunity to stand in front of people. And you're either going to say something positive or you're going to say something mindless. There is no in between. You are either one or the other. And I'm just trying my best. And I'm not saying that I'm doing it all the time, but I'm trying my best to say something that I think could help somebody's life. I remember on the first album, we had a song called B.A.D. And a girl came up to me one day and she says, I want to thank you for that song. And I said, well, what for? And she says, well, I used to be a really bad heroin addict. And when I heard that song, it changed my life, and I don't shoot heroin anymore. Now, that song had nothing to do with heroin. I don't know what she heard in those lyrics. We got finished with the circus record, and I realized we had made one of the biggest piles of junk in the history of the recording industry. And I said, you know what, that's it. I'm not doing that anymore. If I can't say something with the music, there's no point in me doing it. And I thought, this girl is telling me she's not shooting heroin anymore, and I didn't even try. Imagine what I could do if I tried just a little bit, so that all those things. And there's a ton of stories that you hear like that. You don't realize the impact that you're having on people, because I'm one of those kind of people. I live in my own little bubble. I mean, I am one of the worst people to ask opinions about anything, because I just live in my own little space. If I'm not writing or in the studio, I live way away from everybody, and I'm just in my own world. So you don't realize the impact you have on people a lot of times. When I'm at home, I have a ranch it's a pretty big piece of property, and I get out there and I just walk around and I'm just me. You know, and I forget a lot of times until I go someplace and somebody's interested in, for whatever reason, anything I might have to say. To me, that's always surprising. You know, because quite honestly, I don't think it's that important. But apparently somebody does.
If you would end W.A.S.P today and look back, what would you think is your greatest accomplishment that you're most proud of?
I'm not the person to answer that. Because I see what we do, honestly, is not that important. I think you'd be better off asking individuals like the girl I was talking about, you know, shooting heroin and things like that. Those are the people that could better answer that question. I can't.
All right. Thank you very much for coming to Sweden Rock, and thank
Okay,
you
I
for doing
have
this
a
press
previous
conference.
engagement. Thank you, guys.
Друзья, добрый день. Давайте еще раз поаплодируем. Мы встретимся. Рады вас видеть. Давайте расскажем про цель вашего визита, что сегодня ждет ваших поклонников вечером. Пожалуйста, хорошо вам слово.
Well, this is the 25th anniversary of the original release, and we say we've had good experiences playing Moscow before, and we thought this would be a perfect opportunity to end the tour here tonight. So this is closing night of the Reidolized tour.
Спасибо. Ваш вопрос?
Hello, my name is Victoria. It's a pleasure to see you here.
Thank you.
In 1989, you released Headless Children, and the bonus track song was War Cry. Can you remember this song? And there were lyrics that I was Mark from the day I was born. And my father could not understand the fire burning in me. And there is a story when you were young and you were watching TV with your family, and there was your father, and you saw Alice Cooper performing there, and you said, that's my thing, I will do this. So is it really the topic you want still to discuss about young teenagers, about teenagers who are seeking for love of their parents?
I've never had an adversarial relationship with my parents. Always had a good relationship. But I kept getting asked one question more than any other from the fans. They would say, hey, give me some advice. How do I get from where I am to where you are? So I would tell them how difficult it is to do this for a living. It's really hard. And they would listen, and they'd go, yeah. And it would go through one ear and out the other. And I thought, these kids aren't hearing a word I'm saying. So I thought, I'm going to write a story, and I'm going to show them the reality of what the music business is. Not the life, not this. I'm going to show them the reality of what it is. And then once they've heard that story, they think they still want to do it, go ahead.
But as you said a few years ago, the main change happened between now and then. So now there is no musical industry as well.
Right.
So what would you tell now to these people who want to...
I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, I look at my manager, Rod Smallwood, we were in the UK. I mean, he manages us, Iron Maiden. We were having this conversation 6 weeks ago, and he said somebody asked him how to get a new band off the ground, and his response was, he goes, I have no clue. I mean, this is someone managing one of the biggest bands in the world right now, and we don't know how to do it. When somebody figures it out, let us know.
Спасибо. Ваш вопрос?
TASS News Agency. Mr. Blackie, it's been 25 years since the original album was released. Now, 25 years later, how do you perceive your work as a writer? Are you completely satisfied with it? And if yes, why did you decide to re-record it? And how the new version, Reidolized, differ from the original album?
We re-recorded it because it was contractual obligation to do it for the soundtrack for the film. Contractually, we had to do that. I don't know, most writers feel that they're never finished with what they do. I'm not one of those people. I can usually look at something and know when it's finished. And to me, that story is finished. You're always going to have periods where, like in Hollywood, we use an expression in the movie industry where you flesh out a character. You flesh them out. That means you really start to understand who they are. You give them a history and a background and things like that. So maybe some of that stuff is changing in my head, but that's just me as a creator. That really has nothing. I don't even think the audience would be interested in that.
And how does it differ from the original, Reidolized? Is it an extended?
It sounds like more of a movie soundtrack, really, to be honest with you. When we were doing it, the first thing I did is I went in the studio and I listened to the old 2-inch tapes. And it was pretty intimidating because the first thing I thought was, how do I do this again? And so when we re-recorded it, we did about 5 test mixes before we found the sound. And it wasn't me, and I wish I could tell you that it was all part of a big idea that we had, but it was more of an accident than anything, because Logan Mader is the guy that was mixing it, and when he came up with this, what sounded like a movie soundtrack, I said, that's it, that's the direction we'll go.
Hello, my name is Pavel from aqport.com, and I would like to know, the re-release of The Crimson Idol is going to include 4 additional songs into it that were recorded 25 years ago but never made it into the original record. So, what new elements does these songs add to the Jonathan Aaron Steele story?
I think it just completes the story. There's a song that was on Golgotha on the last album called Miss You. And at that time, we put it on the album because I hadn't really come to the conclusion whether we wanted to do the 25th anniversary of this or not. If I would have known that, then I would have waited and put it on the record. Miss You was the very first song that was ever written for the Crimson Idol. But that and a couple other songs never made it because at the time we were 2 years into recording the album. And EMI was putting pressure on us saying we have to have something now. So I gave them what I thought was the closest thing to a completed story I could give them. Something that still made sense. And, but to me the story was never finished. Now it's finished and I can close that book finally.
Okay, also I would like to know...
He's got to tell everybody else.
And so, considering there is going to be a movie with this reissue of the album, would you recommend to a person who never heard original record to listen to the album first or to watch a movie first?
It's like, should you read the book first before you watch the film? They're both versions, and this is going to sound like a sales pitch to you, but it's not. They're both really good. They're just different. They're not tremendously different, but they're different. This new version, it's one of the guys that works with us said it the best. It's gone from 2D to 3D, and that's about the best way I can describe it. And you'll have to hear it for yourself to understand.
Пожалуйста, прошу.
You're back.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry.
It's all right.
So, while you were recording Golgotha, you were writing on your website. In general, you wrote a story about how you broke your leg from falling from the truck. Will you continue writing for the web?
I don't know. I have mixed emotions about it, you know. Because sometimes I think, you know, maybe everybody's bugging me to write a book. You know, I don't know if I want to do that. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's that interesting. But who cares what I did? You know, I mean, everybody's writing books, you know, so I thought I would write that stuff on the website and I just give it to the fans.
but it's already have been written by a few people, like Sting, W.A.S.P. I don't remember the name of the guy who wrote it.
I don't pay attention to that stuff. I have no idea.
Коллеги, остались ли еще вопросы? Да, есть, пожалуйста, прошу вас.
Hello, Blackie. My name is Ksenia, Rolling Stone magazine. Could you tell me, is there any connection between Jonathan from Crimson Idol and Jesse from Neon God? And do you have any ideas about making a film based on Neon God album? Thank you very much.
Well, no, not for the Neon God, but you're the first person that's ever asked that question. And that's really, really good. Because originally, I was debating who to name the character in the Crimson Idol to begin with. It was going to be Jonathan or Jesse. So I had one of two choices. But no one's ever asked me that question before. Very, very good.
Thank you very much.
Следующий вопрос из социальных сетей. Самый впечатляющий концерт и почему он вам запомнился?
The one that comes to mind first is the one I remember probably the least. In '92, the first Crimson Idol was just around, and we were getting ready to do Monsters of Rock in Mannheim. And I got really, really ill about 4 days before the show. And I got to London, and I got to my hotel room, and I literally passed out. So they brought a doctor in to see me, and he examined me, and he says, I examined Michael Jackson 2 days ago. I don't know what you have, but both of you have the same thing. Now, Michael had canceled Wembley because of this. So he says, I'm going to give you these 2 pills, and they're about that big. He says, you take one now, and I'm going to give you this other one, and you take it about 2 hours before the show. So I get to the show, and everything is in slow motion. I'm standing there, I don't even see the people. Everything is in slow motion. I looked up in the middle of the 4th song and saw all the people. There was 180,000 people. And I'm so loaded from what this doctor was giving me. I looked up and I saw them, and I thought, wow, look at all the people that are here. I remember that David Gilmour told me the story of where Comfortably Numb came from. It was a very similar experience. The doctor had given him something, and he went out on stage. He was totally hallucinating all the time he was there. So I remember it, but I don't remember it.
Продолжаем задавать вопросы из социальных сетей. Самый необычный подарок от фаната.
Oh. I don't know what it is about what we do that can draw unusual reactions from fans. About 15 years ago, this girl gave my tour manager a book. It was a diary from about 2 years of things that she had written. The diary was an explanation, a detailed explanation of everything that her and I had been doing together for the last 2 years. And so I looked at it, and the ink was brown. And my tour manager says to me, look a little bit closer. It was blood. She had written the entire diary in blood. So when I said the first time, I don't know why people do the things they do, that's the true good reason.
Хорошо, и последний вопрос из социальных сетей. Какой альбом, ну не считая юбилейного, у вас самый любимый и почему?
say headless children because it was, without headless children, you don't have Crimson Idol. And it represented a maturity and an artist who was not listening to what the world was telling them anymore, or what the record company was telling them anymore. It was the birth of an artist saying, I gotta do what's right for me.
Последний вопрос, пожалуйста, прошу.
Hi, Blackie, welcome to Russia. Thank you for coming once again. My name is Dmitry, headbanging Darfu, and I have a question about back in the 1998 there was a remastered edition of Crimson Idol, which contains the bonus track Phantoms in the Mirror, which is one of my favorites. And why don't it make it on the re-recorded version?
I wish it would have. I was never happy with the chorus. I thought the chorus was not as strong as it could have been. I spent a lot of time considering putting it on the record. I also thought when I went back and I listened to the song, there was a lot of different coloration in the musical elements, and I thought to reproduce that would be extremely difficult to do, and we might not. It might not be as good as what it was.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Lawless. My name is Nikita. I'm from GBR, and my question is: your lyrics are filled with some kind of wisdom, some of life experience. But what is the main life advice could you tell to your fans?
I'm trying to get people to think. I'm not making music that's fast food for the ears, because I'm trying to write in a way where you see something today, but you read those lyrics 5 years from now, and you're going to see something totally different. Because who you are today is not who you're going to be in 5 years from now. So to do that, you have to write lyrics that are multi-layered, that a lot of times ask more questions than they give answers. Why does he ask that? Why does he ask that question? What's he think?
Because your music means a lot to me, and as to lots of fans.
Be more specific. Something moved you. What was it?
Что-то выдвигло. Was formed as person, and your music made me. It's very personal.
Well, all art, whether you're a painter or a sculptor, it's designed to make people think. And if it doesn't make you think, like pop music doesn't make you think. And we'll go ahead.
И если она не заставляет тебя думать, как попса, например.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with pop music.
Ничего плохого в ней нет.
But it's not really art.
Но это не искусство.
Any art makes you think.
Искусство заставляет тебя думать.
That's what I'm trying to do. You know, and as I said before, if I'm asking you questions in the lyrics, it's making you think about who you are.
И вот то, что я делаю, те вопросы, которые я задаю в своей музыке, в текстах песен, вот это делает тебя таким, какой ты есть.
Thank you very much.
Коллеги, большое спасибо, что пришли сегодня в пресс-центр ТАСС на пресс-конференцию. Блэки, большое спасибо, что приняли участие в пресс-конференции. Рад был вас видеть. Желаю вам отличного шоу. Михаил, спасибо большое за помощь в переводе. Пресс-конференция окончена.
Are we ready? Thank you, guys.